NextBridge looks for public input on a new transmission line route. A harrowing rescue for city firefighters following a failed weekend stunt. And Senate expenses scandal emails reappear.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. The co-chair of Thunder Bay's Energy Task Force still has concerns about Ontario's proposed east-west transmission line to power the Northwest.
NextBridge, the consortium chosen to build and maintain the transmission towers, has begun to collect public input on the line that will run between Thunder Bay and Wawa. An open house is ongoing at this hour at the Current River Community Centre. It runs until 8 o'clock. Now, earlier this afternoon, NextBridge officials discussed their plan for the east-west tie line with the Chamber of Commerce. Ryan Bonazzo reports.
Ian Angus has some concerns about the east-west tie. For one, he takes issue with Ontario's minimum standards for such a project. According to the province, four-legged transmission towers like this one can be placed up to 5 miles apart. And while he says that may be okay in southern Ontario, up in the north, that's simply too far apart.
5 miles up in this country is a horrendous length when it comes to replacing towers.
To bridge the gaps, NextBridge plans to build these smaller towers in between, supported on either side by wires. The lower cost of the towers was a major selling point when the province awarded the contract back in August. Angus, though, fears these may be taken down more easily by ice or thunderstorms, causing a cascade effect that could ultimately bring down several towers at once, leaving businesses and homeowners in the region in a lurch.
We'd be losing 650 megawatts of power coming into the region. So we are concerned about that. As the process unfolds, we will start to make input around the quality of the design of the towers.
But NextBridge project manager Oliver Romaniuk insists they're not going to install substandard infrastructure, especially where elements and rough terrain come into play.
All the structures that we will be using for this will meet the Ontario Energy Board's minimum requirements for strength and stability. We are investigating how some of these unique factors will affect this line, and if we feel that it's warranted, we will propose to the Ontario Energy Board increased standards.
And the Ontario Power Authority's Nicole Hopper says under the new plan, the region still won't rely solely on power imported from southern Ontario.
In fact, we may still need generation within the Northwest. What it does is increase the flexibility that we have in order to plan the system so that we can make more efficient choices when we develop generation.
We don't want to be tied to southern Ontario because too often something happens down there that triggers a blackout, and we don't want to be stuck with the consequences.
Not everyone is in favor of the east-west tie. Some First Nations have already voiced concerns over a lack of involvement. Then there are affected landowners who may lose a piece of their property to accommodate the new transmission line. Open houses are scheduled in 5 other communities over the coming days in Nipigon, Marathon, Wawa, White River, and Terrace Bay. Ryan Bonazzo, TBT News.
Meanwhile, Energy Minister Bob Shkreli says consumers can expect to see their electricity bills jump more than 30% in the next 3 years. But Shkreli says the average homeowner will pay about $100 a year less than they would have if it weren't for liberal moves such as killing plans for 2 new nuclear reactors. The long-term energy plan released to date also mentions several projects for the Northwest, including the east-west tie line. Local Energy Task Force Chair Ian Angus says he's encouraged to see transmission improvements in the plan. They also include a proposal to get First Nations off diesel power and a northwest bulk transmission line between Atikokan and Dryden. But he says the government still refuses to convert the Thunder Bay generating station to natural gas.
Thunder Bay firefighters say it was one of the most difficult rescues they've ever had to carry out. Saturday night, a 24-year-old man was parachuting off of Mount McKay and got stuck on the side of the mountain. The rescue took close to 8 hours, and the young man is currently recovering at the regional hospital. Fire crews were met at Chippewa Road by the man's brother, but initially weren't able to see him. The rescue was made more difficult for the firefighters due to slippery conditions. However, crews were able to hike to the top of the mountain and perform a high-angle rescue. They rigged a rappel system, and 2 rescue personnel descended 100 meters to the man. He was then placed in a basket stretcher and lowered to the trail.
Big team effort as far as, making the crews being able to get down to where he was. And as team-wise, it didn't stop at that point. Once he was off sort of the vertical part of the kind of thing, then there was a lot of slope rescue that had to take place as well. And that was a big encompassing affair with lots of manpower needed there as well.
4 pumpers had to be called to the scene along with 18 firefighters for that rescue. Included in it were additional 4 fire technicians. Chief John Hay says they typically attend mountain rescues twice a year, and Hay says the young men will not be facing any charges, nor will he pay the bill.
Typically, the City of Thunder Bay does not charge for rescues. We have agreements with other fire departments and other jurisdictions on cost recovery, but that was actually on a First Nations property, I believe, is the mountain. So typically, it's not something we charge for at home.
The extent and severity of the man's injuries are not known at this time.
A 26-year-old remains in custody after attempting to flee from police last night. Officers attempted to make a traffic stop around 10 o'clock, but the driver refused to pull over. That vehicle was then involved in a collision at Cumberland and Wolseley Streets, following which the suspect driver attempted to get away on foot. He was later found nearby, hiding under a deck at a St. James Street home. When arrested, he was carrying several prohibited weapons, including brass knuckles and a taser, and a large amount of cash. Several charges have been laid, including dangerous driving, assaulting police, and possession of prohibited weapons. The driver in the other vehicle in the collision was not injured.
Thunder Bay OPP are investigating a string of camp break-ins at Max Lake, north of Thunder Bay off Highway 527. According to police, those camps were entered sometime between November 24th and November 30th, and a wide array of items were stolen. Included on the list, generators, outboard motors, chainsaws, fishing equipment, tools, and alcohol. Police are asking anyone who may have information on the break-ins to call the OPP or Crime Stoppers.
The biggest harvest in Canadian history is contributing to the Port Authority's best month of the year. Nearly 1 million tons of cargo, primarily grain, moved through the Port of Thunder Bay in the month of November. CEO Tim Heaney says there have been a lot of ups and downs since the wheat board monopoly came to an end. The most positive news was the reopening of an elevator in Current River.
We've acquired another elevator, and that's been running the last couple of months, certainly contributing to those numbers. And we've also seen the wheat board purchasing the assets of Mission Terminal in Thunder Bay. So that's another change that just happened in November. So these changes, once they all work themselves through, will contribute to better tonnage in Thunder Bay.
The port is still down more than 1 million tons of cargo compared to last year. Heaney says some believe it will take until next harvest to ship all of the grain from the record take on the prairies this fall.
Thunder Bay City Council will look to save roughly $100,000 a year by ending a service it's provided for more than a quarter century. City staff are recommending cutting off well water deliveries. Since 1988, that service has been provided to residents within city limits who use a well. In 2012, there were 553 such deliveries. The city has no official obligation to provide water deliveries except in the case of emergency, but more than 100 homeowners in McIntyre, Neebing, and Westford have been using the service, some on a weekly basis. Staff say there are alternatives, including private companies that deliver water or are using residential fill stations. Also tonight, Council will receive a youth services plan that recommends $700,000 in new spending. If approved, about $1 million a year would be spent on youth programs. The request comes in addition to the $2.5 million the city is being asked to spend on a partnership with the Indian Friendship Center. That money would go towards converting the Port Arthur Prosvita into a multi-use facility that would include a youth center.
There's another challenger for the NDP nomination in Thunder Bay Atikokan. Madge Richardson is aiming to be the candidate to take on Liberal MPP Bill Morrow in the next provincial election. Richardson is a former mayor of Schreiber, and she's currently the executive director of the North Superior Workforce Planning Board. The other person seeking the nomination is Mary Kazoris, who ran for the NDP in the last election in 2011. Another potential nominee, George Saranen, has apparently dropped out of the race. A date for a nomination meeting has not yet been set.
The Thunder Bay Law Association has already voiced its concerns about parking around the new courthouse. Now, a nearby business owner is also questioning just where everyone will park. Bill Scully owns the ski house located directly across the street from the courthouse. He's also a business rep on the parking authority. He says there have been flaws in the planning process from the very beginning, And he says you only have to look at other municipalities with newly built courthouses like Brantford to see that parking will be a real issue in the downtown South Core.
There's 600 plus parking spots there, and it's been quoted, if you don't get there at 8 to 8:30, you don't get a parking spot. The city of Kitchener has another of these courthouses built. We're able to negotiate $16,000 per parking spot from the government to build a parkade. Our representatives did not. We didn't find out about that because our employees were placed on a gag order and couldn't answer any pertinent questions.
Scully also points out that the head of the parking authority wasn't even invited to attend many of the planning meetings. He says he has no doubt there will be parking issues, and he calls the failure to address them before now inexcusable. The new courthouse is scheduled to open early in next year.
Now that the Christmas Cheer Fund is only catering to families this year, the Regional Food Distribution Association is looking to fill the void for singles and seniors. People who will no longer be getting a Christmas cheer hamper can now apply to the RFDA for an emergency holiday hamper. Now, instead of a turkey, which is too large for one person, these hampers will include a small ham, oranges, soups, cereals, and Christmas treats. RFDA board member Larry Brigham says they're looking for food donations to help fill the hampers. People can register to receive one by calling 211, and they will be directed to a food bank near their home to pick up their holiday hamper.
The Dalico Children's Foundation has created a brand new endowment for the agency that will go towards supporting the dreams of First Nations children. The Thunder Bay Community Foundation will match all money raised up to $50,000. Now, by creating the endowment through the Community Foundation, Dalico will have a chance to attract donors who would like to leave them funds in their wills. The money will also ensure there's adequate funding for Dalico children indefinitely.
There's an education that we needed to provide for First Nation charitable giving, because many people believe that they have everything covered, that education is free, that they have everything that they need, and that's not the case. I mean, there are so many children in that system that need our support, and so today's a really exciting day, and it's a great day for the children of Dalico.
Currently, there are over 3,400 children in Dalico care throughout the Northwest.
Over 600 people walk through the doors of the 55 Plus Center every day, and anyone looking to try out the facility will have the opportunity all week long, free of charge. Today, the center's board of directors kicked off their open house event that's scheduled to run until Thursday. All activities, workshops, and programs will be offered to the public throughout the day, and all ages, even people under 55, are welcome. Krista Power is the program and marketing coordinator with the older adult unit at the center. She says the event is held each year and gives people the chance to see everything the center offers.
Spike in our registration after we did our last open house in 2012. And again, it's an opportunity for people to come out. There's no commitment, there's no cost, right? So come out and try a class. You don't have to register, see what fits you. Come in and take a look around. I've often said that people come in through the door and are shocked at all the different activities and how busy it is in here and how young everyone is too.
Anyone looking for a list of events can visit thunderbay.ca.
Birds of prey, crocodiles, snakes, those were just some of the animals on hand at the CLE Coliseum this weekend. Little Ray's Reptile Zoo brought in an exhibit called Dinosaurs Past and Present. It attracted close to 4,000 people who wanted a chance to see these creatures up close. Courtney Rutherford has more.
I've always loved owls. 19-year-old Ashley Salaman is currently studying biology at Lakehead University. She only has the opportunity to see taxidermy owls in school and says it's been fun to take what she's learned in school and then to see it firsthand.
I think it's amazing, especially since reptiles are so misunderstood, so they can see them and interact with them and kind of disprove some common misconceptions.
Little Ray's Reptile Show is a dynamic and interactive show for any age. Their show aims to promote scientific education and animal awareness that inspires young scientists, environmentalists, or the animal enthusiasts. That's in all of us.
Yeah, I think there's nothing like it to see a live, eagle right in front of your eyes. You see the sparkle in its eye, and see the expression on its face. Kids learning conservation facts, you can't go wrong. Literally, we're a product of our environment. Everything we do as humans are, have some effect on the planet. So teaching kids that is probably our #1 goal of doing shows like this.
The The show revolves around dinosaurs from the past and the present. Birds are considered to be the living dinosaur of the present, and there wasn't a shortage of them to look at. The birds in attendance range from an owl to a bald eagle, and each bird had gone through thousands of hours of training to be able to be around people and to work around people. However, there's one reptile that's always a crowd favorite.
The snake.
Yeah? What did you like about the snake?
Because had nice patterns.
Seeing the snake.
Why did you like the snake so much?
Because they have no legs and they have a cool pattern on them.
Thunder Bay was the last stop in the 2013 tour, but they will be back this time next year with a brand new exhibit. Courtney Rutherford, TBT